the early disciples, they didn't have money like that. They couldn't use parchment or vellum. That's why they were forced to write on papyrus. And as soon as they wrote, they sent it out to different churches, and that was copied upon copies upon copies. And that's why there's no way in the world that we would expect to have the originals. Why? Because they were written on papyri. Now let's ask the same question of Islam. These men were in the caliphal courts. They were there with Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman. These are caliphs who controlled, well, at that time, all the way from Turkey down to Yemen, from Tripoli all the way to what is today Afghanistan. They controlled a large piece of land. They controlled some of the greatest metropolises. They controlled some of the greatest literary places like Damascus, and they controlled Jerusalem, and they controlled Cairo, and they controlled Ctesiphon, which became Baghdad. And in every one of these places, there was libraries, there was literature, these were secretaries. And these guys in the caliphal courts, according to what the traditions, they were there in Medina, and therefore they would have not needed to use papyrus like the early church had to use. They would have had parchment, and they would have had vellum at their disposal. So the question I ask you, looking at the two different genres, looking at the two different ages, looking at the two different groups, the Christians on this side only had papyri to work on. The Muslims on this side had parchment and vellum, animal skins. Who do you think should have the best material for us to look at?